Maybe someone out there has been through something similar, or maybe I'm just crazy for thinking I ever had control over my life. I'm Michael, 38, and my wife Amanda, 35, has always been, well, difficult. We've been married for 10 years, and in the beginning, things were good. Amanda was funny, charming, and confident, the type of person who could light up a room. She was the kind of woman who made you feel lucky just to stand next to her. But over the years, things changed. It started with small things. The way she would dismiss my opinions, her cutting remarks about my weight, or her subtle comments about what other men might be like. I brushed it off. Everyone has their quirks, right? But then, the snide remarks about our intimacy started. She made jokes about how I wasn't as gifted as her past partners. First, I laughed along, even though it stung. I told myself she didn't mean it, that it was just her sense of humor. But deep down, it chipped away at my confidence. We tried therapy. We talked. I tried to fix whatever I could. I hit the gym, dressed better, even looked into enhancement surgeries. But no matter what I did, Amanda was never satisfied. She always found a way to make me feel like I wasn't enough. And yet, despite all that, I loved her. I clung to the good times, the memories of who she used to be, and the hope that we could somehow find our way back to that. Recently, though, her behavior had gotten worse. She was glued to her phone, constantly texting or scrolling through Instagram. She started staying out late, claiming she was meeting friends or attending networking events. And then there was the perfume. Amanda had started wearing this new fragrance. Something bold and seductive. Something she never wore around me. I asked her about it once, and she snapped, "Why do you even care? You never notice anything anyway." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust that my wife, despite everything, would never cross that line. But something in my gut told me otherwise, and I was about to find out just how deep the betrayal went. The night I started to unravel the truth was like any other, at least on the surface. Amanda told me she was going to a work event at a downtown bar. She didn't bother asking if I wanted to come, and honestly, I didn't want to. Things between us were tense, and the thought of watching her charm a room full of strangers felt exhausting. But something felt off. She'd spent nearly an hour getting ready, more effort than I'd seen her put into anything with me in months. Her dress was tight, hugging her figure in a way that left little to the imagination. And the perfume, the one she didn't wear at home, was practically suffocating. "Don't wait up," she said, grabbing her clutch and heading out the door. I tried to shake the feeling, but my gut wouldn't let it go. I poured myself a drink, flipped on the TV, and tried to distract myself. An hour passed, then two. The gnawing in my chest only grew worse. It wasn't until her phone buzzed on the counter that things took a turn. She'd forgotten it. Now, I've always believed in privacy. I'd never gone through Amanda's phone before, but something about the way it vibrated, over and over, felt like a neon sign screaming for my attention. I hesitated for a moment, staring at the screen. Finally, I picked it up. The message preview was from someone saved as, "Kevin, work. Kevin, can't wait to see you tonight. That dress is going to drive me insane." My heart stopped. I unlocked the phone. I knew her passcode. She hadn't changed it. There it was. A stream of messages between Amanda and Kevin that I wish I'd never seen. They were explicit. No room for interpretation. Descriptions of what they'd done together in his car, in hotel rooms, and even at his apartment, just blocks from where I thought she was working late. The worst part? She wasn't even trying to hide it. She was bold, laughing about me, calling me clueless, and making fun of my limitations with him. Felt like a punch to the gut. My head spun as I scrolled further, reading how she'd been meeting him for months. Maybe even longer. There were pictures too. Her in lingerie I'd never seen before. A snapshot of Kevin shirtless in bed with a smug grin. I didn't know whether to cry or punch a hole in the wall. My wife, the woman I thought I could fix things with, had been using me as a punchline while she built a whole second life with someone else. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat there, staring at her phone, waiting for her to come home. When she finally walked through the door, I was ready. Amanda walked in around 2 a.m., her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She looked startled when she saw me sitting on the couch, her phone resting in my hand. "Why are you still up?" she asked, her tone sharp, as though I was the one out of line. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her, letting the weight of my silence fill the room. Finally, I held up her phone. "You forgot this," I said, my voice cold and steady. Her face paled for a split second, but she recovered quickly. "Oh, thanks," she said, reaching for it. I pulled it back. "Who's Kevin?" Her expression froze, her hand still mid-reach. "What?" "You heard me," I said, my voice firmer now. "Who's Kevin? The guy you've been meeting in hotel rooms? The one who says your dress drives him insane?" She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, she snatched the phone from my hand, clutching it like a lifeline. "You went through my phone?" she finally spat, her voice rising in anger. "Don't," I snapped, cutting her off. "Don't you dare make this about me. I saw the messages, Amanda. I saw everything." Her eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape. "It's not what you think," she said weakly, her voice trembling for the first time. I laughed bitterly, the sound foreign even to me. "Oh, really? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly like what I think. You've been cheating on me, lying to me, and the worst part? You've been making fun of me behind my back." She shook her head, her voice growing desperate. It's not serious. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything?" I repeated, my voice rising. "So what, you humiliated me for fun? Was that it?" Amanda's face twisted with anger now, her defensiveness taking over. "What was I supposed to do, Michael? You've been impossible to deal with, always so insecure, always trying to fix things. It's exhausting, Kevin." He made me feel alive again. Her words hit me like a sledgehammer. I stared at her, my hands shaking. "So this is my fault?" I asked quietly, my voice breaking. She hesitated, then crossed her arms. "I didn't say that, but maybe if you were more fulfilling, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere." I stood up, towering over her now, my anger boiling over. "You're unbelievable. I have given you everything. My love, my time, my loyalty. And this is how you repay me?" She rolled her eyes, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Oh, come on, Michael. Don't act like you're some saint. People cheat all the time. It doesn't have to be the end of the world." I couldn't listen to her anymore. I turned and walked toward the door, needing to get out before I said or did something I'd regret. "We're done, Amanda," I said over my shoulder. "I hope Kevin is worth it." Her voice followed me as I left the house, yelling something about how I was overreacting, how I needed to grow up. But I didn't turn back. I drove for hours that night, my mind racing with anger, betrayal, and humiliation. One thing became clear as the sun began to rise. I wasn't just going to leave Amanda. I was going to make her pay. I didn't go back home that morning. Instead, I drove to my brother's place on the other side of town. Eric has always been the calm, level-headed one in the family. He's the guy who everyone turns to when they need advice or a reality check. I didn't need advice, though, not yet. I just needed somewhere to crash while I figured out my next move. When Eric opened the door, he didn't ask questions. He could see it in my face. "You look like hell," he said, stepping aside to let me in. I sat on his couch, my head in my hands, while he poured us both a drink. It was barely 7 a.m., but I didn't care. When he handed me the glass, I took a long sip before finally spilling everything. The affair, the texts, her cutting words about me not being enough. It all came tumbling out. Eric sat silently, his face growing darker with every word. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, swirling his drink. "So what are you going to do?" he asked. The truth was, I didn't know. Part of me wanted to just walk away, file for divorce and never look back. But another part of me, the part that couldn't stop replaying her cruel words, wanted something more. I didn't just want to leave Amanda. I wanted her to feel the kind of pain she'd put me through. "I'm going to make her regret it," I said finally, my voice low and steady. Eric raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done being the nice guy," I replied. She's humiliated me, Eric. She's turned me into a joke. I'm not just going to walk away and let her get off scot-free. Eric studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right, he said. But if you're going to do this, do it smart. Don't let your anger cloud your judgment. That was the moment the plan started to form. Over the next few days, I started gathering everything I needed. I made copies of the texts and photos from Amanda's phone. I looked into Kevin's life, where he worked, who he was connected to. Turns out, Kevin wasn't just some random guy. He was married. The thought of his wife, an innocent woman, being dragged into this mess made my stomach churn. But then I thought about what Amanda had done to me. The lies, the humiliation, and I knew I had to see this through. I reached out to Kevin's wife through an anonymous email, attaching screenshots of the messages between him and Amanda. I didn't tell her who I was, just that she deserved to know the truth. I also made sure to let her know where Kevin and Amanda liked to meet. The final piece of the puzzle was Amanda herself. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, the way she'd made me feel. I started digging into her life, her work, her friends, even her social media. Every piece of dirt I could find, I filed away for later use. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about taking back control. By the end of the week, I had everything I needed to pull the rug out from under Amanda and her lover. It wasn't just about exposing them. It was about making them feel the weight of what they'd done. The first move was subtle. I emailed Kevin's wife, Melanie, again, this time with a more specific plan. I told her that Kevin and Amanda were meeting at their usual hotel this coming Friday evening. I even included the reservation details, which I'd found in Amanda's emails. Melanie responded almost immediately, thanking me and confirming she'd be there. Step 1, complete. Next, I had to ensure Amanda didn't see it coming. For the first time in weeks, I acted like everything was fine. I didn't bring up the texts or her late nights. I didn't confront her about Kevin again. Instead, I played the role of the clueless husband. I cooked dinner, asked about her day, and even complimented her when she got dressed up. Her guard was down. She probably thought I'd forgiven her or that I was too weak to do anything about it. On the night of the big showdown, I waited until Amanda left the house before putting the final part of my plan into motion. She told me she was going out with friends, but I knew exactly where she was going. The luxury hotel downtown. I arrived at the hotel an hour later, parking my car a block away to avoid being seen. I wasn't going inside, that wasn't my role tonight. That was for Melanie. Instead, I stayed in my car, waiting for her text. It came at exactly 9:47 p.m. I'm in the lobby. He's here. Room 214. Perfect. I responded, do what you need to do. I'll make sure the rest is taken care of. Then I sent the next text to the private investigator I'd hired earlier in the week. He was already at the hotel, armed with a camera and a recording device. His job was to document everything. Kevin entering the room, Amanda joining him, and whatever happened next. It felt surreal, sitting in my car and orchestrating this chaos. But at the same time, it was empowering. For the first time in months, I felt like I had the upper hand. I didn't have to wait long. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. It was the investigator. Got what you need. Sending you the footage now. I opened the file and saw exactly what I expected. Amanda and Kevin, laughing and kissing as they entered the room together. It was undeniable. With that, I forwarded the footage to a few key people. Amanda's boss, who had strict policies against employee misconduct, and Kevin's HR department, which I discovered through a little online digging. The dominoes were in place. All that was left to do now was let them fall. The morning after Amanda's rendezvous with Kevin, I woke up to chaos. My phone buzzed with notifications, emails, texts, and even a few voicemails. The wheels were already in motion, and I could feel the storm building. By 8 a.m., Amanda's boss had called her into the office. She left in a rush, clearly flustered, muttering something about a misunderstanding. I stayed behind, sipping my coffee, waiting for her inevitable return. An hour later, she came back, her face pale and her hands shaking. She slammed the door behind her and threw her purse onto the counter. "What the hell did you do?" she demanded, her voice dripping with panic. I looked up from my coffee, feigning confusion. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, Michael, she screamed. Someone sent my boss a video of me and Kevin. Private video. They're saying I violated the company's code of conduct, and now I'm on suspension. I leaned back in my chair, a faint smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. Well, maybe you shouldn't have been screwing around with a coworker, I said calmly. Her jaw dropped. You? Me? I interrupted. Don't blame me for your poor decisions, Amanda. You did this to yourself. Her face twisted with rage and desperation. You don't understand. If I lose this job, I lose everything. I stood, setting my coffee down. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said, my voice cold. And you know what? I don't care. You didn't care about our marriage. You didn't care about me. So why should I care about what happens to you? She opened her mouth to argue, but the sound of her phone buzzing cut her off. She glanced at the screen, her face growing even paler. It's Kevin, she muttered, quickly answering the call and stepping into the other room. I didn't follow her, but I could hear the muffled shouting through the walls. It didn't take a genius to figure out that Kevin's world was falling apart. 2. His wife, Melanie, had clearly taken my tip to heart, and from the sounds of it, she wasn't holding back. When Amanda finally came back into the kitchen, her eyes were red and her face blotchy. She looked at me like I was a stranger, like she couldn't believe what I'd done. You're a monster, she whispered. I chuckled darkly.
No, Amanda.
I'm just a man who finally decided to stand up for himself. She didn't respond. She just grabbed her keys and stormed out of the house. As the door slammed behind her, I felt a strange mix of emotions. There was satisfaction, yes, but also a deep sadness. This wasn't how I'd imagined my marriage ending. I'd loved Amanda once, truly loved her. But now, all I felt was the weight of her betrayal and the cold, bitter satisfaction of seeing her finally face the consequences of her actions. I wasn't done yet, though. There was still more to come. Later that evening, as I sat in my quiet house, I couldn't help but wonder how Kevin was holding up. Not that I cared about his well-being. I wanted to savor the fallout of his life crumbling alongside Amanda's. As if on cue, Melanie, his wife, sent me an email. It was short and to the point. Subject: Thank you. Body: Michael, you were right. I caught them red-handed, and I confronted Kevin in front of his colleagues. He didn't deny it. He tried to justify it, of course, but it's over. I've already called my lawyer. I don't know who you are beyond this situation, but you gave me the clarity I needed. Thank you, Melanie. I leaned back, smiling as I read her words. Kevin's cushy life was unraveling as quickly as Amanda's, and it felt like justice. I couldn't resist digging a little deeper, so I checked Kevin's social media. It was almost too easy. His accounts had been wiped clean, but not before a few angry posts from Melanie had gone up. Imagine finding out your husband's been cheating with his coworker for months. I don't need a liar in my life. Ladies, be careful who you trust. Some men will smile to your face while stabbing you in the back. The comments were full of people asking for details, and it didn't take long for Melanie to spill more than enough for Kevin's friends and family to piece things together. As for Kevin, his profile picture was gone, replaced by a generic silhouette. No posts, no updates, no witty captions, just silence. I imagined him sitting in his house, trying to explain to Melanie why he'd risked everything for a fling. Or maybe he was hiding out somewhere, avoiding her wrath. Either way, he'd soon find out I wasn't done with him. The next morning, I followed through on one of the final parts of my plan. I emailed a compilation of the texts and videos to Kevin's HR department, making sure to highlight the timestamps and explicit nature of the affair. A few hours later, I received confirmation that the materials had been reviewed and escalated. By lunchtime, Kevin was unemployed. Amanda found out when she called me later that afternoon. Her voice was frantic, a mix of anger and desperation. "Why are you doing this, Michael?" she demanded. "You've destroyed everything." "No," I corrected her, my tone icy. "You destroyed everything. I'm just making sure you face the consequences." "What do you even want?" she shouted. Revenge? Is that it? Does this make you feel better? I paused for a moment, then spoke with deliberate calm. I don't want revenge, Amanda. I want justice. And now I have it. She hung up on me, and I didn't hear from her again for the rest of the day. But I wasn't finished yet. By now, Amanda and Kevin had lost their jobs and their reputations were in tatters. But I wasn't satisfied. I wanted the world to see them for who they really were. The idea came to me as I reviewed the evidence one last time. There was something poetic about using their own actions to destroy them. After all, Amanda and Kevin had no problem flaunting their affair in text messages and videos. They'd made it so easy for me. I started by creating a fake social media account under an alias. The profile looked legitimate enough. Random photos, a few harmless posts. Then I uploaded the damning material. I didn't post it publicly. Instead, I sent it directly to a few of Amanda's coworkers and Kevin's closest friends. I attached a short, scathing message. I thought you should know what Amanda and Kevin have been up to. Looks like they didn't think anyone would find out. The responses came almost immediately. Is this real? Holy sh**t. Does Kevin's wife know? Wow. Just wow. It didn't take long for the evidence to spread. By the next day, Amanda and Kevin's dirty laundry was being aired across group chats, work circles, and even a few online forums. People were ruthless. Amanda came home that evening, her face red and her hands trembling. What did you do now, Michael? She yelled, slamming the door behind her. I stayed seated on the couch, calm and collected. I just made sure people knew the truth. You're sick, she spat, pacing the room. Do you have any idea what you've done to my reputation? To my life? Your reputation? I scoffed. You destroyed that the moment you decided to cheat. Don't blame me for shining a light on the mess you made. She stopped pacing, her chest heaving with anger. I didn't deserve this. You could have just divorced me quietly. But no, you had to ruin everything. I stood, walking toward her until we were face to face. You humiliated me, Amanda. For months, maybe even years. You made me feel like I was worthless, like I wasn't enough. And now you want to play the victim? No. You deserved every single thing that's happened to you. She didn't respond. She just grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I watched her leave, feeling an odd sense of relief. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my own life. But I still wasn't done. After Amanda stormed out, I realized she hadn't learned anything. Despite the fallout, the firings, and the humiliation, she still saw herself as the victim. That infuriated me even more. If she thought she could walk away with even a shred of dignity after what she did, she was wrong. The next morning, I decided to deliver the final blow. I made a visit to her parents' house. Amanda's parents had always been distant but polite to me. They seemed to view me as a placeholder rather than their daughter's life partner, always subtly insinuating that Amanda deserved more. I figured it was time they knew the real Amanda. Her mother, Diane, opened the door, surprised to see me. Michael, she said with a nervous smile. What brings you here? Is Amanda home? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Diane hesitated. She mentioned she'd be stopping by later. Why? I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, holding the envelope I'd prepared. Because you both deserve to know who she really is, I said, handing it to her. Diane opened it cautiously, her husband, Richard, peering over her shoulder. Inside were printed screenshots of Amanda's texts with Kevin, the pictures they'd exchanged, and even a few stills from the footage taken outside the hotel. What is this? Diane asked, her voice trembling. It's your daughter, I said bluntly. She's been cheating on me for months with a married man. And while she's been laughing behind my back, I've been the one trying to hold everything together. Richard's face turned red as he scanned the evidence. This has to be a mistake, he said, though his voice lacked conviction.
No mistaka, irraplia.
She's lost her job. Her affair is public knowledge now. And I thought you both should know exactly why your perfect daughter's life is falling apart. Diane looked horrified, clutching the envelope to her chest. Michael, we didn't know. Of course you didn't, I snapped. Because Amanda's been lying to everyone, including you. Maybe now you'll understand why I'm done with her. I didn't wait for a response. I left them standing in their foyer, shell-shocked and speechless. Amanda stayed quiet for the next few days, but I wasn't taking any chances. I had my lawyer draft divorce papers immediately. I wasn't about to let her stall or manipulate her way back into my life. When she finally returned to pack her things, I handed her the envelope. "What's this?" she asked, her voice shaky. "Your ticket out of my life," I said flatly. She flipped through the papers, her eyes widening. "You're taking everything?" "Everything I earned," I corrected. "You'll get what's fair, nothing more." Amanda started to cry again, but I didn't care. She'd made her bed. Meanwhile, Kevin's life was unraveling just as quickly. Melanie had filed for divorce, freezing his accounts and leaving him scrambling. He showed up at my door one night, looking like a wreck. "Michael, man, please call this off. It's gone too far." I stared at him, disgusted. "You slept with my wife and made me a joke. There's no calling this off." He tried to argue, but I slammed the door in his face. Let him suffer. The day Amanda moved out, she tried one last time to appeal to me. "We've been together for 10 years, Michael. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It used to," I said, "before you threw it away." She begged, cried, and even apologized, but I was done. I watched her drive away, feeling nothing but relief. With Amanda gone, the house felt empty but peaceful. I started focusing on myself again, hitting the gym, reconnecting with friends, and even seeing a therapist. For the first time in years, I felt free. I heard through mutual friends that Amanda was struggling. She couldn't find work, and her reputation was in shambles. Kevin had ghosted her, and she was essentially alone. Part of me felt sorry for her, but I quickly pushed it aside. She'd made her choices. Looking back, I realized Amanda's betrayal taught me a lot. I'd spent years trying to fix a marriage that wasn't worth saving. My advice? Never settle for someone who doesn't respect you. Stand up for yourself, and don't let anyone make you feel small. I'm moving on now, stronger and wiser. And Amanda? She's just a memory.